Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, Season 1, Episode 1. It is simply called Pilot. It's weird. It's weird that Amazon have pilots, because I'm so used to Netflix just being, titles.
Yeah, at least Amazon trained me with it with that stupid
Yeah.
pilot season.
Not that this was a part of that, though.
And no, it wasn't.
This was not only straight to series, this also got a second season before we even got Season 1. So,
Yeah, but that was just to lock Krasinski down
probably. Yeah, he's a big shot director now. They had to
because
lock
that
him in.
happened like a month after A Quiet Place.
Was it? I can't remember.
It was pretty close after that, I remember.
Yeah, but so normally I'd say spoilers here, full spoilers for the episode, but I won't do that in this case because it's the first episode, so we like to start spoiler free. So if you want to get some spoiler free thoughts, so you can check it out or whatever, you can do that, and then we'll give you a warning in the middle before we dive into spoilers for the first episode. So what was your experience with Jack Ryan as a pro? Because there's been 5 movies.
I have never seen any of them.
I have seen, I believe, one of them. I saw. Hunting for Red October, which I think it was the Baldwin. I think it was Alec Baldwin played Jack Ryan, and Sean Connery was a Russian on a submarine, but he sounded like Sean Connery
Yes.
because, of course, he
Yes.
did.
I'm familiar with the movie.
Because Sean Connery and Arnold Schwarzenegger, for whatever reason, they get to keep their accent no matter who they're playing, and no one questions it. It's amazing. But
It's a special status in Hollywood, isn't it?
it is. It is. It's those two guys can just do that, and no one questions it. I guess to an extent Van Damme as well, but he's not as big.
Yeah, and it's never been in such a high profile situation, right? Oh, this is supposed to be an American.
Oh, sure, yeah,
really
yeah.
seriously.
I mean, yeah, the highest he's went, I think, is probably. Oh, to be fair, in some of his movies, they mention that he is French. They actually call him out as French in some of his movies, which I feel like with Arnie, like, you never got, oh, he's an Austrian. Like
No.
that almost never happened. He was Russian in one movie.
Close enough.
Close.
It's closer than Connery.
True, true, true. He's much closer than Connery. But hey, so this is the new Jack Ryan show from Amazon. John Krasinski playing Jack Ryan, the titular Jack Ryan. I will say I'm not a big fan of the title, just because I hate titles where it's just a really normal dull name,
Yeah.
and that's just all it
It's
is.
as generic a name as it gets, isn't it?
And what makes this worse is that it's Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan. It's just there's 2 names.
Well, that's it, because Tom Clancy's is supposed to be the selling point, right? Like,
Yeah, it's
you
supposed
might
to
not
be.
have heard of Jack Ryan specifically, but you probably know Tom Clancy's
Aye, because Ubisoft keeps
work.
shitting out games with his name in it.
Yeah, but let's be honest, a lot of people will have heard of Tom Clancy just because of, like, Splinter Cell or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but they started shitting out games that he was like. The Division has nothing to do with Tom Clancy, but it's still Tom Clancy's
Does
The
that
Division.
have his name on it?
Yeah.
Christ. God, Ubisoft, you shills.
I know. They got the rights to use his name. They just throw. I'm surprised it's not Tom Clancy's Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've got this new Jack Ryan show. It's 8 episodes this first season. They've been pimping this out forever. It feels like we've waited such a long time to get to this from when we
I'll,
first knew it had been shot, and then it was.
I'll be honest, I was almost sick of this before I'd even seen it, just with how heavily they've been advertising it the past month or so. Like,
Oh,
everywhere I go, it's just Jack Ryan.
it's very much the first in the wave of the new Amazon programming. You know how Bezos made this big deal, and he's like,
Yeah.
all right, we're going to have all these genre shows and be these
Make
big
an
hits.
actual effort.
Yeah. This kind of feels like the first wave. It's kind of like a crossover that kind of became part of this wave of, like, here's some big properties.
Is this the first one that wasn't part of the pilot program?
It may be.
Because in that, I think that would be a pretty clear indicator that this is
Yeah.
the start of the new era.
So obviously it's slow going. Obviously it's the Refn one we're looking forward to more than anything.
Lord of the Rings, thank you very much.
No, the Refn
Well,
one.
that's further out, so I'll accept Refn for now.
Yes, Lord of the Rings, which I will try the pilot for and then tell you you're on your own afterwards. Now, so it's funny. I'm joking that I'm not into Lord of the Rings and fantasy. I'm also not traditionally super into spy stuff, right? It kind of depends. Like, I like the Bourne movies, at least the first 3, anyway. And there's some exceptions here or there. I like a more playful spy thing, like Charade, for example. Hitchcock obviously has some spy movies that I like, but I'm not traditionally into spy stuff, right? That said, Hunt for Red October, not a bad movie. Yeah, but it was more of a submarine movie than it was, anything else. Like, it wasn't like,
Yeah.
a classic spy movie. So, I'm coming into this, but I know the whole point of Jack Ryan is he's not the action hero. He's not Jack Bauer. He is the analyst. He is meant to be the everyman caught up in all this shit. And to be fair, John Krasinski works really well as an everyman. He's kind of a lovable goofball, but not in like a really silly kind of way. He's just that right level of handsome enough, but not drop dead gorgeous. Big enough,
Yeah.
but not tough looking.
He looks big and broad. That he could probably handle himself if he gets caught up in something,
Mm-hmm.
but not like he's got training.
Yeah, like if you're gonna, I'm not talking about looks here. I'm just talking about the whole package, the potential for action hero status, the skills, the masculinity, everything as a whole package. He's a solid 7 out of 10, right? That's what he is,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's fair.
He's solid, but he doesn't stand out next to the big boys, right? I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's funny for parts of this pilot when he's actually in the CIA headquarters and he's he's at his computer and stuff, and he's getting called into the boss's office. I was like, this is like a really serious version of The Office. Everything's so tense. Everything's so tense, and he's fighting with the boss. That never happened with Michael Scott. What's happening?
No, it didn't.
Um,
I'll be honest. I kept expecting him to just look at the camera every so
I
often.
know.
I'm trained to expect it.
I'm trained for the.
Just
this is ridiculous look. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trained for it. And I realised the audio people didn't get my face there, but they got it. They got it.
They've
So-
seen The Office. They know what we mean.
So you've got that, and then of course it leads to this big bad potential terrorist named Suleiman or Suleiman, if I'm saying that right. And we get some backstory. We actually open the pilot with like a flashback to these two kids. When there's a bombing. Where was it? I forget the
Lebanon.
Lebanon. There you go. Thank you. And clearly, when it came up saying 1980 whatever, I was like, okay, right. So these are going to be the bad guys when they grow up, right?
Yeah.
Obvious, right? That's the clear setup. And I'm like, okay. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff in this episode, and I presume the whole show where it's subtitled. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that there's not bullshit reasons for them to be speaking English all the time. I'm like, okay, no, speaking the original language, that's good.
It did feel a little strained a couple of points where they were speaking in whatever language it was.
They were
It was-
selective with the subtitles. I noticed this as well.
There was that, but then there was also a point where it was like, "Hey, I'm not too good in Arabic," and I was like, "Oh, I mean, English is fine, conveniently."
Yeah, but at least, like, I don't mind it if there's a character there who would rather speak in English, right? But some stories like this are so guilty of, like, foreigners speaking in English no matter what, just because it's convenient for us as the audience.
Yeah, no, they definitely never do that outright.
Yeah. I did notice, though, that there was definitely times where there'd just be certain sentences that weren't subtitled. It's like, no, that's not an important line. You don't need that line. Just the important ones.
Yeah. Just contextual, which at points is nice. It kind of leaves you caught up with the the characters that don't speak that language.
Yeah.
So you're kind of left figuring it out with them. Other points it's just a little frustrating because you just want to know what they're saying, and you're giving me enough here. You might as well give me the rest.
Yeah. So you got John Krasinski. You also have Wendell Pierce. He plays James Greer, although I will be calling him Bunk for the duration of this show. I just hope everyone accepts that.
Okay,
Go on, ask me. Just ask me.
go on.
Just ask me. Ask me the question.
No, I'm not asking you. Just get it out of your system.
Watch The Wire, you filthy casual. So, he's there. He's the boss man, the superior to Jack Ryan. And he's very much Bunk, swearing a lot, looking very... I love how he looks the exact same in everything I've seen him in, because he's always like a cop or an authority figure, so he's always got the same sort of suit on, like no matter what. He looks the same. It's scary. He's basically not aged a day since The Wire, which, at this point finished like...
A while ago.
Yeah, like... I want to say that was like 2002, 2008, something like that. So, I mean, yeah, it's been a while.
Been a good decade.
Been a good decade, yeah. Dude's aging gracefully, I suppose, is what I'm saying. And we got Abby Cornish in there as the potential love interest. There's not a lot of her in this first episode, though. There's just the first meeting, which, by the way, like, her hearing your job title and then and this was in the trailer to be fair as well, but her hearing the job title and being like, oh yeah, I know it's boring, and then immediately a helicopter comes to get you because something really important's happening and you're needed for that mission. You look such a badass. That is the greatest first impression you could have on someone.
Yes, it's genuinely amusing in the timing in the episode.
It's funny, yeah,
which
that's really
helps.
funny because he doesn't know that for him, which makes it even funnier.
Yes, exactly.
Because he's just watching with the crowd, going, "Oh, there's a helicopter from the Coast Guard. What's happening?"
Yeah, so it is genuinely funny because that feels like the sort of cliche moment that could be, just whatever. But no, it is funny, and like you say, it's like, well, that makes you seem good, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then he turns around and tries to get her number as he's been carted off with the... and of course, it's also the daughter of a guy he used to work with who wanted stock tips. Is North Korea going to screw me over on these stock deals? And then, like, just kind of insults someone. He's like, I don't know, but it doesn't work like that. I don't work in the North Korean department, alright? I don't do stock. I monitor funds moving around. That's my job.
Yes, exactly.
Shady
and this is a guy he
practices.
used to know, because he used to be Wall Street with this guy.
Which, yeah, it makes sense why this is what he monitors, because he knows the market and the system.
Numbers, yes.
Yeah. He knows the system, makes sense. We also see that he used to be in the Navy, from the looks of it.
Yeah.
So, he's got a bit of a history in that sense, but he's an analyst. We see he's got scarring on his back and stuff. But of course, he's convinced that he's almost discovered this new terrorist who could be the next Bin Laden. That's his whole thing. Through the money, he's followed the money, right?
Always works.
He's convinced there's this big bad. He's heard the name mentioned here or there, like through intel, and they almost speak of him as if he's as a boogeyman, right? And Bunk is just like, no, that's all you've got. What? No. But he's convinced, and he ends up getting into a bit of trouble, sort of like sidestepping him a little bit. And ultimately, of course, it turns out to be somewhat true. There's something going on, and that kind of sets up the plot of the whole series, right? Is this big bad who's one of these two kids who's grown up in the episode. So I suppose now's a perfect time to ask you, while we're still in spoiler free, did you enjoy episode 1 of Jack Ryan?
I did, yeah.
Sorry, Amazon's Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan.
Oh God, this is going to be another one of those things where you make the title longer every time we do a review, isn't it?
I can't really make it any longer than that, let's be honest.
Well, you didn't have Amazons in it this time.
Oh, true. I could go back and add that, but that's about
it. Yeah, but you get creative.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But no, I did. A couple of little problems. Some structural nitpicks that I'd have.
It's a very much an episode of two halves. The first half is here's all your introductions, and then the second half is okay, here's the plot.
Yeah, there's some really horrible introduction exposition. Mm-hmm. There's a point where all of these characters in the office are sat in the boardroom. New boss is here. It's like, right, go around and introduce yourselves and tell me who you all are. Like, really? That's how we're doing this? You're literally just gonna have them just tell us their names. I'm like,
to his credit, it cuts away after the one after Jack Ryan, and
we do have like 3 before that.
We do, but there's at least 2 other notable characters that we get a good sense of who aren't part of the stand up and explain yourself routine. So to the show's credit, the one who's clearly got a crush on him, I got that she had a crush on him, and then later on we get a bit more of her when he's talking to her. He kind of manipulates her into going above the boss's head, because it's not technically her boss, because she's in treasury, as he puts it. So she sends off the order to freeze the bank accounts. And then kind of what seemed to be not the boss, but almost like the assistant manager, if you will, of the group. There's that woman who keeps looking at him like, no, don't do it, Jack. Don't. I've told you, stop doing this.
Yeah.
As if there's like someone who's kind of like the leader of the pack, but not the actual boss. If that makes any sense. Who knows the structure of this?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I thought that was a little irritating just to have them just introduce themselves like that, like three or four in a row. I'm like, okay.
Here's the thing, though. I feel like the 2 that introduced themselves were the ones that were the least important.
They were.
It's almost like they predicted this complaint and said, no, we'll make them be the non-important characters so that all the real characters don't get the clunky exposition.
No, it's fair. It felt just annoying anyway.
I'll defend it slightly. I mean, I get why you're complaining about this. I'll defend it slightly just because there's a bit of suspense because it's like 2 people before it gets to Jack, and I think that the point is that because they already have this altercation outside before they know they're working for each other, right? Where he almost runs into him in the bike because some other asshole made them swerve.
Opens the door on him. Yeah.
and you're sort of waiting for him to get to him. You're like, does he recognize him? Does he know it's him? Because he was on his bike. I think he was wearing. Was he wearing a helmet? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe Jack Ryan's too much of a badass to wear a helmet when he's riding the bike. But he's like, oh, your turn, Lance Armstrong. It's like, oh, he does recognize him. He knows exactly who he is.
Yeah.
And he kind of fumbles. And I think it's meant to be that it's almost like, to go back to the Office comparisons, I think this is meant to be the awkward tension until it gets to him. I think that's the point of it.
I wasn't really feeling it though.
That's fair. I'm defending. I think that's what the intent of having two people go first is.
That is fair. I will also say the flashback at the start of the episode.
Mm-hmm. CG, bit rough.
Bit rough, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, structurally, I don't like it in this episode. I like everything that's in that piece individually. Like,
okay,
all the content itself.
The two kids watching their hometown. Being,
all the content.
bombed to hell.
Excellent. I don't think that's what you start the show on. I think, especially given some of the reveals later in the episode, I think that ruins them.
Okay, you think it made it really obvious what it was going to do later on because of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think that should have been at the end of the episode, or episode 2.
We actually get a second half of the flashback at the end, so you're thinking just the whole thing should be at the end.
Pretty much.
Okay, I can see it. Actually, I could see it being in the middle of the final scenes, if that makes sense. There's a specific moment I can think of. This is where you just cut to that in the middle of the scene.
I think I know what you're on about.
And then cut back to the action, right? I think you could do that, but
yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
But that's the bulk of my criticisms. I think mostly it's pretty fun. Some witty, snappy dialogue in there. Some good action in the back end of the episode.
Yeah, the action's pretty. I mean, obviously, I mentioned that the opening CG was a little bit rough because it was like a whole town being bombed. So obviously, it's just all CG. The rest of it did not feel cheap though. The rest of it felt pretty slick.
It feels like there's a budget in there.
Yeah. I like Krasinski and I like Pierce. I think those two have a good chemistry, which is weird to say because they obviously don't like each other, but that's still chemistry. There's still chemistry there.
They play off each other well, and I think they're going to carry the show quite nicely.
Yeah. The little we get of Abby Cornish also seems fine.
Not much to judge on, to be fair.
Yeah, but chemistry then seems to be there. She's no Pam. Don't get me wrong, but it seems to be there. No, I'm fairly optimistic going forward. I think I was worried about a couple of things. I think what we're going to get though is I mentioned Jack Bauer earlier. I feel like there's going to be like a weird mix of what Jack Ryan is supposed to be from the books. Not that I've read any of them, just from what I've heard. And then like 24. I think we're going to get something in the middle of those two things, because it's going to want to have the action and it's going to want to have.
That's fair.
I feel like that. The final shootout and all that stuff. It felt more 24 there than it did anything else.
It did. At least he feels quite separate from that stuff at this point. What I'm worried about is the end of the season.
He turns into an action hero by the end of the season because he's forced into it.
Is it going to feel too quick?
It depends what they do, but we have no idea at this point.
No, exactly. It's just but I think only 8 episodes. There's not that much time to get to that. They're going to want at least one full episode of that, I imagine.
My biggest complaint, honestly, with this first episode is kind of what I was hinting at earlier, is that I do feel this weird split down the middle where the first half is here's your introductions, and the introductions for the most part are pretty good. It's just that because it just feels like a series of introductions, it feels quite slow in the first. Because this episode's a bit longer. The rest of them are all about 45 minutes, give or take. This one's like an hour 5 minutes long, so it's 65 minutes, and I did feel it a little bit because I think that first half feels so segmented versus the other half.
Could have done with being trimmed down a bit
when the plot kicks in. But it's this weird thing though, where we always say that pilots often shove too much into like the runtime, and we'd like it for them to have longer episodes. I think the problem here is not that it's 65 minutes; it's more just the structure of the 65 minutes.
Yeah. I think the first part could have been trimmed down a bit so that it's not that it needs to be faster and we need to get to the action quicker. It's just it feels like it takes a long time for the show to get started. Like you're kind of just waiting for it to get going at a certain point.
I think just honestly, I think for me it's just a case of just another draft in the script and just maybe shuffling a few things around to give it a bit of back and forth, as opposed to just first half all the introductions, second half all this stuff. The action in the second half is pretty good though, as we said. We'll get into that a bit more in the spoilers, obviously, but the action is pretty good, and I really like the stuff involving Jack specifically, I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, it's very much him using his skills that aren't just, okay, he's not huge on just, okay, here's a gun, let me be an action hero, right?
Yeah, yeah. But also just this idea that there was a vulnerability to him because he's kind of in this situation, and everyone else, all these soldiers and stuff, can do what they can do, and he's like, in a shirt, and he's like hiding in a room, like just
Yeah.
that kind of element to it. And I'm like, okay, this is a little bit interesting. It's interesting that he's our main character. That he's not the, I think most action stories, Bunk would be our main character, and he'd be the tag along character who's there
Yeah.
to be protected.
And I think it's what I'm saying. He is actually a very interesting character as well. We get a lot of his backstory contextually. He was in a significantly higher position that he is now.
Oh, you mean Bunk?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And, something happened. He made a wrong decision and he had to take a break and he's kind of been demoted, but not officially demoted.
Yeah, he's just gotten divorced as well.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's set up that. Because even everyone in the new place that he's working now, because he just got, this is his first day on the job here, and everyone in the office is like, yeah, whatever, he did something to piss someone off. He made a mistake, and he's on his last legs. This is him being demoted. They all know that.
Yeah. There's a point where someone phones him and he's like, oh, they recognize each other's voice, and they're like, hey, I guess they put me through to the wrong extension. I was trying to call this place, and they're like, no, that's me now.
Just sounds miserable. Just sounds miserable. I mean, I'm sure Jack and Greer will bond by the end of the season, and he'll grow to trust them and grow to trust his hunches because they'll pan out and all these things. Yeah, it's just a question of how exciting it's going to be episode to episode. But the back half of this did get quite good. So
Did, yeah, and that's not to say the first half was bad either. It felt jarring.
no, because the character interaction, at least between those two, is pretty good. So
Yeah, definitely.
So I think there we'll say spoilers, full spoilers now for this point on for episode 1 of Jack Ryan. So yeah, so we have these two friends / brothers. I never actually quite caught if they were brothers or just friends.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Because obviously Suleiman is the the boogeyman one who's running all this, and then Ali seems to be his friend from the flashback, and they do the twist here, of course, where okay they're watching the bank that Ryan's well he just wanted to freeze the accounts. It was actually Bunk who said no. Also put on surveillance. Actually, let's try and catch them in the act, right? Let's make this more useful. In case he's right, let's do that. Because he doesn't even want to send it up the chain, but once it's over his head, he's like, no, well, let's at least make a proper effort out of this.
Yeah, and Ryan's reason to not just do this is he wants to be proactive. He doesn't want it to be too late. He doesn't want them to use this money and commit a horrible crime. Yeah, and be like, okay, we could have stopped that.
Yeah, because he brings up Bin Laden's like, hey, 20 years ago, do you not think they'd have dreamed of getting this hint early? And then the other thing he points out is that only cost about $500,000 to do 9/11, whereas they've been transferring up to $9 million. So what could they do with that money? So
sets up the threat quite nicely.
It does, yeah. It raises, it's the stakes. It's like, okay, quite clear. Something serious.
It's really smart by saying, compare it to a real world event of going, no, like, you all know what this is contextually. You know what we're comparing against, so you understand how big a threat this is we're telling you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we're at a point there where this doesn't feel too sleazy to do that. Because I remember 5 years after 9/11 feeling a bit weird that they were making movies about it, and it was like, this feels too soon.
I think now it just feels natural in the sense that I imagine
it's the same with
in that way.
in the 60s making movies about World War II,
yeah.
By that point it felt a lot more normal, I think. That's not to say there wasn't movies about World War II by the end of the 40s. I'm sure there was, but probably movies about World War II while it was still going on, no doubt.
Almost certainly.
But I was just saying, it's like, okay, now it just feels like a part of history. Even though it's history, most of us can remember, unless you're under a certain age, we can all remember it.
Yeah.
But I just, it's like I didn't wince at the reference to it in this one, where I was like, oh yeah, I guess we're past that point now.
I think it's part of the just the premise, right? Okay, we're in modern day in the CIA dealing with Middle Eastern terrorism. You kind of have to mention it, otherwise it's this glaring omission.
Yeah, otherwise you're in an alternate reality where that never happened.
Yeah, if they're not
Although
making
that said, if they'd set it when all the books were written, that'd be kind of fun. If they were doing like a period piece out of this,
it would. That's just a different show altogether, then, right?
but it could be fun. Uh, so yeah, so the big thing is that they catch these two guys who are when they're away from this bank and they're meeting this other contact, and they grab them, the operatives in the local in Yemen, and Bunk's like, hey, picks them up in the helicopter, like, hey, we're going to Yemen. You need to be there because you're the one who knows what questions to ask. He's like, I'm not going to. I'm an analyst. I'm not going. He's got on the plane. He's like, get on the effing plane right now.
Yeah.
So he gets dragged off to Yemen, which wouldn't please anyone, I don't think. And he gets taken to the military base there, and they've got these guys in custody, and they're questioning the one guy with the bigger beard, and they think he's the main dude, right? But of course the big twist is it's the other one that because Jack Ryan doesn't want to talk to this guy. He gets really sort of sick of being in the room with them interrogating him, so he comes out for air, and he ends up going to talk to the other guy on his own. And brings him some food and some water. Very because there's even a line earlier on where Bunk says, "Oh, leave your Boy Scout mentality at the door," because he looks like he feels guilty about all these people being interrogated and treated poorly. Even though he's in obviously a situation where he knows why they're doing it, but
but he's never had to. He's obviously very aware of this. He works for the CIA.
Oh, of course,
but he's never been confronted with the reality of it.
But he tries a different tactic. He tries one of his own tactics with the other guy, and of course the big twist here is that he turns out to be Suleiman. And as soon as there's these rebels who come up at the door, I don't even rebels is the right word. It probably isn't, but they come up to the door and they've got like these dead bodies and they sell them to the Americans, and it's like, hey, these are people on your wanted list. Pay us for them. I'm like, okay, this feels like the start of a plan. I don't know what the plan is exactly yet, but my thinking was that it was a bomb inside one of the bodies. That's what I thought the result of this was going to be. Turned out one of them went full Hannibal Lecter and had like I'm sure it was like makeup. It might not have been. Maybe they just cut off a guy's face, but he pulled off the face once they put him in the freezer, and he's in the inside, and that turns out to be Ali, the second of the two boys from the flashback. And then, of course, they come and start shooting the place up as a distraction, and there's a big gunfight. And Jack Ryan's hiding in the cell or the interrogation room with Solomon. But we know that's probably where the guy in the inside's going. That's where he's going to get him out. He's the guy. He's the high profile target that they want to rescue. And what I like about this is obviously I think you put two and two together. He's probably the main bad guy. But I like that even if he is or he isn't, this effort that they're doing to get him tells you he's a big deal. They're going through this gigantic ordeal just to get this one guy back. He's important.
No, it's true. And but I do think it tells you a little bit too early that this is the guy from the flashback. Specifically, one problem why I wouldn't have had the flashback where it was is because that told us it was Lebanon. And
then later on, there's a scar.
He actually addresses but he addresses his name. He says, he gives him a name, and he goes, that's Lebanese, that name. And as soon as he says that, it's like as soon as that's really early in the conversation when he's brought him the food, I'm like, okay, that's the guy then. Just because it's the only other reference to Lebanon we've had.
Yeah, I think the way you maybe argue that it doesn't spoil it is that both him and the other guy are the two boys, and it's the other one's the main guy. Maybe. Not that I thought that, but I'm just devil's advocate.
Sure, I don't know. It feels a little bit sloppy to me.
That's fair. I think the moment he comes in the room is the guy in the inside, Ali. When he comes in the room, I think that's the moment you cut to the flashback and do the whole flashback, and then cut back to this is why he's coming for him, right? You just do it then. But the fight, because Jack hides behind the door, and the guy, hey, he's behind the door, watch out for him. And Jack gets into like a sort of fight. He kicks the gun away, and it's a struggle. It's a proper like hand-to-hand struggle with holds and stuff. And at one point, the guy's got a knife, and he kind of tries to block that. He gets
a little bit of a slash against his stomach.
Yeah, he gets slashed, but Solomon's trying to grab the gun with his foot because he's chained to the desk still, and it's a whole thing. And eventually, Jack saves his own life by grabbing a grenade off the dead soldier. There's a guard that that Ali killed on the way in. Which is, by the way, it's very violent. They're just gunning people down, which you'd expect, but it's there.
It doesn't shy away from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously we mentioned it's full of swearing. It's an R-rated show. It just is.
Oh, right? Absolutely.
That's what you're doing. But he grabs a grenade and pulls a pin out. He's like, "Hey, you shoot me, all three of us die right here, right now." And it's like they've got the pin in the other hand, and he's there. And my favorite part of this, first of all, because it feels like okay, he's good enough in like a fight situation that he knows what to do. He's not completely like hopeless
he
at
can
it.
hold his own a bit of a what was essentially a bit of a bar fight, right?
Yeah. But what my favorite part of the whole thing is that once they do leave, because they obviously don't want to die, is he's hand shaking as he's putting the pin back in the grenade.
He's
I like
terrified.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Then we get the rest of the flashback, and he comes back out, and Bulk sees him, and they're just kind of staring off into the oh god, that's the villain, dun dun dun, and that's kind of the end of your episode. But yeah, so I mean the final show was good.
It was.
And it kind of set up. I mean, it's a very simple episode in that sense, where it sets up clearly to this. The only thing we've not spoken about actually is another main character, Haneen, a woman, in I presume Yemen or maybe a neighboring place, but
I was thinking maybe Lebanon.
maybe yeah. And she's a wife of someone important, potentially, or other characters here.
I was assuming Suleiman.
I would yeah, it's a likely possibility, but they never actually reveal it. So because he's not there when these other people go to see her, so I assume maybe we'll get the reveal next episode when he comes home and like,
Yeah.
Hi honey, I'm home. I expect that scene to play out exactly like that. But she's noticing all these men that work for him building very dangerous looking bombs and so on in her house or next to her house, and she's bringing them tea and stuff. So it seems like she's going to be an important kind of maybe more of a moral character in that side of the fence.
That's why I'm expecting her to be Suleiman's wife,
Yeah.
and it'll be okay. How do they play off each other?
Also, it's worth mentioning the actor who plays Suleiman has a very similar name to Suleiman. It's not, it just looks. It's actually I would pronounce it the same. It just spelt slightly differently.
Suleiman. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I see it. It's just missing an E.
It's just missing the E, yeah, but it's just basically the same name.
I think it'd be Sul instead of Sul.
Yeah, although amusingly, his first name is Ali, which is what the other character's name is.
Yes.
So that's amusing. But yeah, so she's obviously going to play a part in the show. It's I see potential here. It's not necessarily the type of story that I gravitate towards, but if it's slick enough and the action's good enough and it's tense enough, I can get into it. But the big thing for me is that I like Krasinski and Pierce enough in these roles.
Those two can carry it for at least a few episodes, if
Yeah.
nothing else improves.
Yeah, so I like them. That was easily my favorite scenes of the episode were when they were on screen doing stuff.
Definitely.
I will say, random observation is that sometimes John Krasinski, depending on how he's shot, like there was a scene where he's lying in the bed and he's like he can't sleep at like 4 a.m. I actually didn't realize it was him at first because it just looked so different.
Do you think?
Yeah, it was like a low angle shot looking up at his chin, and I thought it was some other random dude.
That reminds me of the camera shots I hated.
Oh
Hated
god,
with a passion. I hope we get no more of them.
here we go.
Was when he was rowing at the start, and we had the camera as if it was on the oars. So it was as he was rowing and pushing his arms out and then back in. The camera was doing that up and down into his face. I thought it was horrible.
I feel like you'll get it once in the middle when he goes rowing to try and get recenter himself, and he'll get it once in the finale at the end when he's back home and he's
it
again.
Feels like that sort of camera that when someone jumps on a bike and you have to follow them right behind the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it was trying to emulate that sort of feeling, but I just thought it was horrible to watch. It was just like, no. What are you doing here?
That didn't immediately bother me, but that's a fair point. But yeah. So no, that is episode 1 of Jack Ryan. But yeah,
pretty good.
Promising. Yeah, we'll be covering more. Episode 2, we should be getting to that. We should be recording it at least sometime on Sunday night, so that is the plan. But we'll try and hit it up probably every other day, give or take. Maybe every day, depending on the schedule. Just kind of depends. But we'll try and get through it over the next 2 weeks, and that is what we're going to do. So let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You can do that over there, get some bonuses, feel warm and fuzzy for helping us out. But you can do that. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?